I want to start off by thanking my colleagues for joining me today, and there's some who want to be here but couldn't be here. We'll start first with our representative from Manhattan, Councilmember Gail Brewer, our two representatives from Brooklyn, Councilmembers Jumaane Williams and Lander, Councilmember Fernando Cabrera, and Councilmember Rodriguez sent one of his staffers to support. The two council members wanted to be here, but they couldn't be here, and those are Debbie Rose and Robert Jackson. I also want to thank Professor Marc Rotenberg, who came up from Washington, D.C. Today, and he's a professor at Georgetown University Law Center. He runs an organization called EPIC that is actually suing to stop these full-body scanners. And I also want to thank a senior advocate, Sandy Abulafia, who has just arrived, who will be joining us to talk about her personal experience. You know, every day in New York City, 1.1 million children go to public school. If even one of these children were strip searched or groped by security the way that they are at our nation's airports, we would literally have riots in the streets. As we speak right now, the TSA is unnecessarily forcing men, women, and children through a scanner that literally strips the clothing away from even our youngest children and veers them stark naked to a TSA employee. If they refuse, they are groped by these same TSA screeners. The TSA says these scanners are necessary for the safety of our passengers, but they're lying. In fact, the world's foremost security experts, including the folks who run the airport at Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, which everyone acknowledges is the top terrorist target in the world, these experts reject these strip search technology as ineffective. Rafi Salah, the former head of security at Ben Gurion, said that he could get enough explosives through these scanners to blow up a jumbo jet. And that makes sense because these scanners do not detect chemicals or plastics, and even the Government Accountability Office has said there is no proof that these scanners would have stopped last year's attempted underwear bombing over a plane in Detroit. And that's the whole reason the scanners were introduced. So the question becomes, why does the TSA use these scanners? And the answer is twofold. The first reason is that the TSA is incompetent. They don't have a comprehensive security plan to keep Americans safe, so they engage in theatrics to try and pretend that we're safe. The second is that this is really the worst kind of smoke-filled backroom deal-making by government. These contracts are very lucrative. In fact, two contracts of $170 million apiece were awarded only days after the attempted underwear bombing. The lobbyists for those two vendors, one was Michael Chertoff, the former director of Homeland Security, and the other is Senator Al D'Amato. So this is about business making money and not security. You don't have to take my word for it. Remember, the GAO says that despite the fact that these naked body scanners were introduced to officially prevent the so-called underwear bombs, there is no proof that they work. Even more disconcerting, there is significant evidence that these scanners are unsafe. Anyone who's ever had an x-ray, and I've had many in the hospital, knows that your most sensitive body parts are always covered to prevent radiation. Not so with these scanners. Your entire body is radiated. So the government is pretending to make you safer while in fact they're harming you. The bottom line is that we have turned TSA screeners at our airports into peeping Toms for no legitimate reason. Those who haven't tried it may not understand. So let me be clear. In the year 2010, the government is using state-of-the-art technology that can literally peel away every layer of clothing that you have to see your stark naked body. And this is why we're here today, because this practice must be stopped, and that's why I've introduced legislation that would ban these naked body scanners from all New York City buildings, including New York City's airports. And I've also called on the Port Authority of New York to follow many airports in the United States, including Orlando's International Airport, that just today announced that they're opting out of the incompetent TSA and they're choosing their own security provider instead. I want to start first with my colleague, Brad Lander, who's joined us here today in support of this legislation. Brad?
Thank you, David. Thanks so much to Councilmember Greenfiel for bringing us together on this important issue, and to the professor for joining us. You know, sometimes it's a fine line between protecting individual privacy and protecting our public safety and protecting us from terrorism. Boy, these naked body scanners go way, way over that line. As I think is very clear, they don't make us safer. All they do is violate our privacy, and in very clear ways. So I'm honored to support the introduction of this legislation. I agree. I hope the Port Authority will opt out. and that we can enter the Thanksgiving travel weekend and all the travel days to come with confidence that what the government is looking to do is actually develop a comprehensive plan to protect us and not engage in stunts that violate our privacy in the name of our safety. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Councilmember Gail Brewer of Manhattan to address us, please.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Greenfield, and the individual from Georgetown Law Center who has done a lot of research on this. To me, the issue is just as Brad Lander indicated. These particular TSA instruments are lucrative for the people who are selling them, but they are not necessarily providing us security. And I think all Americans want security, but they don't want to have their private parts to be part of a scanner. And I say this because questions have not been asked. There has not been enough discussion. Even the fact, as Councilmember Greenfield indicated, that the airports can opt out, that the Port Authority can opt out, and that perhaps states and cities in general can opt out is not part of the dialogue. So there are many, many questions to ask. Certainly in my mind, if the Israelis think these are not necessary for security, they are certainly not necessary. I put the security of El Al and the Israeli government way above TSA and feel very strongly that they're right. So on every single level, questions to be asked. Body scanner is not something that Americans or anybody traveling wants to have to be part of their travel schedule. And of course, we all want to be secure and safe. These particular body scanners don't even provide that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. I'd like to ask Councilman Jumaane Williams from Brooklyn to address us.
Thank you, Councilman Greenfield, for bringing us all together. I'm here really because at the bare minimum, there is no conclusive evidence to show that these body scanners work. So I don't want my constituents in East Flatbush traveling and getting their bodies shown. It just seems perverted for no reason. But the only thing that is clear is that someone made a lot of money off of this. And that seems to be the bottom line of why we have these scanners coming in now. Because there was one or two people that knew one or two people and wanted to make some money. And if Ben Gurion Airport in Israel says that these don't work and they don't provide any added security, there's absolutely no reason for my constituents in East Flatbush to have their naked bodies shown. So I'm happy to support this legislation to make sure that we're doing things that are not just about people making money, but actually about making us safer. Thank you.